Hmm. Creative writing, creative storytelling. There's something going on with that at the moment. Um, I I don't just want to be sitting on a toadstool and giving good advice about creative writing, which was what I originally thought because I'm ancient and I've done this for decades and decades and decades. And I know obviously a lot about the processes that the younglings don't. But it's not about that. And I think that this channel is going to become something else in due course. Because here's what happened. I have a family member who writes stories and sometimes reads them out to the whole family, which I think is wonderful as an event at a, Christmas party, Easter party, that kind of thing. Amazing. I mean, my family would never have sat through a story that I'd written to be read out. So I think that's just fantastic. And yeah, I wish that more creative writers would have this opportunity. But among the family, there are a couple of people which nowadays would be described as on the Asperger's scale somewhere, and they don't sit still for long enough to listen to a story. And so he um, figured out that if he gets everybody to read a page around the room, the children and the adults in turn, that people listen up better. And the person who was slightly autistic would also then just wait his turn and read it out nicely. And so that worked really well. And as he was telling me this, I was saying, I had this thing in my mind that perhaps rather than reading out the story, he should be storytelling the story. So really with the gestures, the sun's in the sky and the clouds are over here, and just tell the story. I mean, he knows the story. He has written the story. He will never not remember the story in the same way as we never not remember highlight moments of our lives, star memories. Nobody knows the story better than the author does. So I offered this as a possible alternative to be reading out the page one by one. Although I think it's nice that everybody in the family reads out a page one by one, and don't make that go away. Just try this different approach, try this new approach as well, and just to see what happens, just to see what happens. Now, I'm a huge fan of original storytelling, where one human being tells other human beings a story, not just with words, but with actions and with energy and with movement. And ooh, and there around the corner comes the big bad creature, and we're all terribly afraid. It's super primal. It's how people used to tell their stories around the fires 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 years ago. And to connect with that, to me, is always like hyper exciting. So I told this person this. And about 5 minutes later, there was some other conversation. And all of a sudden, I had this in my head, a story. There's a story that needs to be told. And as I'm a creative writer of all these years' experience, I'm instantly moving to draw up a new document to type into. But just as I was about to do that, I went, wait a minute. It would be quicker, even though I'm a demon typist. It would be quicker if I just called up a video and just told the story out, storyteller style, just told it. Because when you're experienced as a creative writer, you are inside the story. You're inside the story like a war reporter is crouching behind a wall, and there's the bombs going off and pew, pew, the bullets flying by, and you're sitting there with your microphone and you're commenting on what you're seeing and what you're hearing. That's, to me, what a creative writer does. Go into this other world and you have these experiences in there. And so I thought to myself, well, why don't I just tell the story rather than write it down? And nowadays you can have a transcript of your video and then you can use that as your draft manuscript. And so I did, and told the story straight out. And I think that's another level of storytelling, isn't it? When you're, rather than telling a story that you already know, you're telling a story that you don't know yet. And there these magic moments happen within that story where you're like, wow, I've learned something new, or this really surprised me. And in the upcoming story called Boy and Frog, there is a moment that really surprised me, that just really astonished me. And oh, I'm just going to give the game away here. So the story is about a boy and a frog, and the frog says to the boy, you know, bad spell, break the spell. And the boy says, oh no, I can't do that. I can't kiss you because that's girl magic. And the frog says, oh my God, there is no girl magic or boy magic. There's only magic. And I was like, wow, that is so cool. And I really saw it. You got girl magic with kissing the frog on the one side, and the boy magic, the Disney princess, and the boy magic, superheroes and Star Wars with the Force on the other side. But above that, on top of that, is this really shining star that is human magic. And it's like, wow, that's so cool. That is so cool. Human magic that powers it all. And so I was super glad that I told the story, storyteller style. I would have had the same experience if I had written it down. And I just thought this was a very interesting and fun experience, fun event to make that connection between the writing and the storytelling, and also to possibly, I might like to do more of that. You never know, you know, my hands might be getting older, and I might have to just tell the story in words, in spoken words, and do the actions at the same time. And that's kind of good fun. So, would you like to hear the story of the boy and the frog? If you don't, then I love you very much and thank you for listening for this long. And if you do, here is the story of the boy and the frog. Lots of love, and I hope to see you later soon. And I'd love to hear some comments on what I've said to possibly spark some new ideas for new videos. Who knows? It's all an exciting journey into infinite creativity. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a little boy. The little boy had red hair, and he was a happy boy who liked to go out in nature. On this day, he was walking down the road towards a little river where he'd like to play. He liked to catch tadpoles there and look at the little fish swimming around and the little lizards. And the sun was shining, the water was sparkling, and he was full of happiness and joy. So as he climbed down the bank, slipping down a little bit, holding on to tufts of grass, into the river, he is going down there and making sure his shoes are not getting wet, and he's just paying attention when he heard a little voice. Hey, help, help, help me. Oh, you need to help me. And he's looking around and he's seeing nobody, but then the little voice comes again, help me, help me, help me, please. And he looks down, and there is a little frog, little green frog, sitting on a little rock and is looking straight at him and is saying, help me, please. And the little boy is astonished, for he has heard about such things in fairy tales and stories, but he's never seen a real talking frog before. Wow, he says. Hey, you're my very first talking frog. I thought you guys were just fantasy, just things that people make up to tell to children. Oh, I wish, said the frog. I wish, and drew its webbed hand across its forehead and looked very sad. But I am so glad that finally, somebody has found me who can hear me. I have been squawking and croaking, and nobody has taken any notice. You clearly are a very magical child." "What, me?" said the boy, looking around, a little worried there, scuffling his feet a little bit. And I'm not magical. I'm just a boy." "Ah, no, you're not," said the frog. "No, you're not, because you can hear me and you're talking right back at me. Everybody else just hears me croak. They don't see me for what I really am." And the frog looked very sad and hung its froggy head. The boy said, "Hey, don't get upset. So, okay, I can hear you. I guess that makes me magical in some way, although I don't feel very magical." "Ah," said the frog, "most magical people in the world don't feel very magical. The world wasn't made for them. They were made for a magical world, rather than for the world of people who can't hear me when I croak." "Okay," said the boy. "Well, this is cool. Talking frog. What a tale I have to tell at school tomorrow." "Oh," said the frog, "I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. They'll probably just laugh at you. They probably think you're crazy." "Ah, you're right," said the boy. "This is true." They both sighed together exactly at the same time. And then the frog said, "Look, I have a favor to ask. I've been magically transformed into being a frog by well, yeah, let's call her an evil witch. She shouldn't have done that." All right, all right. So I trampled on her flowers with my horse, I did. And I didn't apologize, and I just laughed at her when she told me that she'd spent ages trying to plant her flower garden. And I shouldn't have done that. But come on, turning me into a frog. And it's been ages. I don't even know how many years it's been or how much time has passed. I want to be a prince again. "Huh," said the boy. Now you're right out of luck. That's girl magic. And I don't have any girl magic. I'm a boy." The frog said, "What do you mean, girl magic?" "Well, everybody knows that only girls can turn princes into frogs and vice versa. I mean, you were turned into a frog by a female witch, weren't you?" "Yeah, yeah, that's true. But magic's magic, surely. There's only one magic, and either you have it or you don't," said the frog. "You need to try. You need to break this spell." "Well," said the boy, "I'm not going to kiss you. This I can tell you for nothing. That's girl stuff, and girls are icky. Gah! And I'm not kissing a frog, not now or ever." And he folded his arms across his chest and pouted his lips and stomped his foot, and that made the water splash, and that made his shoe wet, but never mind, he did it anyway, so that the frog would understand that there was no way he was going to kiss him or do any kind of girly magic. The frog sighed and sat up a little bit straighter. If you really paid attention, you could tell that once upon a time he'd been a prince, because there was something in his stature and his bearing. And the frog said, "Okay, no girly magic, I understand, but magic is magic. If you want to," and here the frog stopped and cleared its throat, "show somebody that you really appreciate them, that you love them, how do you do that as a boy?" The boy thought about this. This was not a question he had ever thought about or ever been asked. How would you do that? "Well," said the boy, "I once saw a puppy, and I really liked the puppy. It was so fun. It was so cute looking, and it was wagging its tail, and it was happy to see me. And I guess I stroked it. I stroked it on the head." "Huh," said the frog. "Yeah, I think that'll be fine. Perhaps that'll work. But can you look at me and see me like you saw the happy puppy?" "I don't know," said the little boy. "Let's I guess we can try. I'm gonna try." And so the boy wrinkled his brow and tried really hard and looked at the green, slightly slimy frog sitting there. And the frog had its eyes closed as well in furious concentration. And he could feel that this would never work. "No, no, no," he said. That's not working." The frog opened his eye and looked at him, and there was such sadness in the frog's eyes, such sadness, that the little boy felt something happening in his chest, like something was moving, like a wave or something. He went along with what that felt like, and he put his hand to his chest, and then he reached out and very, very gently bent down towards the frog and touched the frog on its little green head, just between the eyes, very carefully. And there a strange kind of shiver went through him, as though something had unlocked, something had unblocked, and there was like stars, little tiny sparkling stars flying from his hand. And those little stars, they fell right upon the frog, and the frog started to move and shimmy and then shimmer and turn into light. The little boy stepped away. He stepped back and actually sat down on the side of the river. And there in front of his eyes, the frog was shimmering, becoming much bigger, turning, shaping in all sorts of ways. And then there stood another little boy. And he was about the same age, but he had black hair and he had brown eyes and a big smile on his face as he stretched his hands out and looked around himself and looked at his hands, and then he looked down at himself, and then he looked at the little boy, and his eyes were so full of joy and delight that it jumped right across to the little boy, and he could feel that other boy's joy as well. The prince had been reborn. The two boys just laughed and cheered and clapped their hands together, and they very nearly hugged, but then they didn't. And the little boy took the prince home to his house because the little boy was ever so hungry after having eaten nothing but flies for God knows how long. He was just dying for some proper food. So the little boy took him to his house, and his mother was amazed. And he said, "Well, I found him by the side of the river." He didn't say anything about frogs or transformation. And the mother was a kindly lady, and she really enjoyed making sandwiches for both the boys and then watching how the little prince was eating like he hadn't eaten in years, which in fact he hadn't. And then what happened next was that, of course, the little boy went back with the prince to the castle where the prince was living, and where his mother and father and his sisters too were just they'd been crying for years and years and years because they missed him so much and loved him so much. And the joy and happiness in the kingdom was completely off any scale. There was this huge party with fireworks, and the little boy was celebrated as the one who found the little prince. And he got lots and lots and lots of rewards heaped upon him, titles and favors, and lots of money. And so the little boy and his family, and the prince and his family lived happily ever after.